Hello, everybody, and welcome to Riftbound Ramblings. I'm your host, Barrett, and today is Monday. Monday Fun Day for card reveals because it is June 16th, and we have our next full week of the reveals for League of Legends Riftbound Origins, which is the first set. So, I'm not going to waste anybody's time. We're going to dig right in. Without further ado, let's dive in. First off, we have the Immortal Phoenix. This was given to us from a reveal by the bonus action crew. And this is a 3 energy, 1 power, 3 might spirit unit for the Fury domain with Assault 2. And it says when you kill a unit with a spell, you may pay 1 energy and a power to play me from your trash. So obviously synergistic with spells. Who loves spells? Kai'Sa loves spells. And Kai'Sa already gets to cheat the power costs on your spells to save that for you to use it with things like the Immortal Phoenix to get a unit on the board. And for 3 energy, I mean, now you'd be playing it for 1, but so for 1 energy and 1 power that you saved from the spell for a 3 might, actually 5 might when you attack with it, is pretty good. We also know that killing units with spells is going to be pretty easy, I think, for Kai'Sa, as not only later on in this presentation there will be more kill spells that we've seen, but also there's just other ones that already exist within Kai'Sa's kit. Of course, I also think this is going to be quite good in Jinx. Jinx has a card that is really synergistic with her called Get Excited. You can discard the card, aka being Immortal Phoenix, then deal 3 damage to a unit because it costs 3, and then if that killed the unit, you get to bring the Immortal Phoenix by paying the cost to have a unit along with the Get Excited combo. Of course, if you notice, Get Excited costs you a power, playing the Immortal Phoenix costs you a power, lots of power costs, which means you have to find your seals for this to feel very good. And so because of that, I'm not going to give it the full challenger rating, but I do think this is going to be quite a good card. Obviously, it's meant to feel good. It's an epic rarity card. I just don't know about it completely 100%, but I do think it is going to have some great synergies with things, especially in Kai'Sa. Moving on, speaking of removal spells, we've got Void Seeker. This was given to us by Frank Scarron, who's one of the designers. 3 energy and a power for a Fury domain spell. You can play it as an action, and it says deal 4 damage to a unit at a battlefield and draw a card. Of course, it has Kai'Sa flavor text. This is Kai'Sa's ability. Of course, it's meant to be played with Kai'Sa. And to top it off, I think this gets even better the more copies of Eager Apprentice that was previewed earlier last week to make this even cheaper because Kai'Sa is already going to help you and save the power cost off the Void Seeker, and this is just going to feel incredibly strong to play in those decks. And because of that, I think it's going to be at full quantities for Kai'Sa players, and that's good enough to make it a challenger rating for me. Moving on, we've got the Gemcraft Seer. This was given to us by Zara Berry, another person that works on the Riftbound team, for 3 energy and a power for a 3 might Mount Targon Mind Domain unit. It has Vision. Now, this is the first time we've seen Vision on a card, but if you read the core rules, Vision was already described to us in that rule book. But essentially, it says when you play me, you can look at the top card of your deck, and you may either keep it there or recycle it, which is put it on the bottom. And that's not why I think this card's incredibly good, but that information is incredibly powerful. What makes this very good is that this card also gives your other units vision. That's amazing. It means if you have any sort of cards that have abilities when you play them, you trigger the vision first, or you can trigger the vision after you play them. You can pick the order. And it obviously has incredible synergy with characters that can pump out a ton of units on the or on your base or on the battlefields, like Victor. Every time you generate a recruit, because Victor says play recruits, recruits get played. When you play them, vision triggers. Every time a recruit comes in, you get to look at the top card of your deck to synergize with your draw abilities that you know you're going to be playing because draw is so incredibly powerful. Not only that, mind and order domains have plenty of ways to draw cards. This is going to be a challenger level card. I have no doubt about that. Moving on, we have the first ever battlefield that has been spoiled for us, at least from a someone working with Riftbound. This one's from Broden, who works with the Offline TV crew, and they make great content. Go check them out. But this one is Aspirant's Climb, which says increase the points needed to win the game by 1. And honestly, I don't think this card's incredibly like meta-defining or like powerful, but I love this card. I think it's going to be so fun in the 4-player version of the game to, increase the amount of fun that we get to have and experience by making the game go a little bit longer. That being said, it's going to be pretty good probably for the ramp decks of the game, think people like Volibear, because they might need the game to go a little bit longer, so you have that better edge when the game has gone on longer. So I'm going to give it a dive-in rating. I think it's good enough to see play, and I think for the fun factor alone of playing with your friends in the 4-player format, I think it's good enough. Moving on, more reveals from Broden. We have the Adaptatron, which is a 4 energy, 3 might, Piltover Mech Calm unit that says, when I conquer, you may kill a gear, and if you do, buff me. Now, this doesn't specify killing an enemy gear or killing your own gear, which means it can kill any gear, which means it can kill your seals. Not You don't want to kill off yours, of course, just for the buff. That's not very good. But if as soon as they create another gear that like synergizes from getting killed off, this is going to feel really good. But the fact that this can remove your opponent's seals as long as you get that conquer condition, this card is going to be very good. For as long and as good as we think the seals are going to be, and I've given all of those challenger ratings, so to give this card a challenger rating makes sense because it can remove them. Hey, speaking of, we have acceptable losses. This is the last card that Broden revealed for us, but this is for 1 energy, and it is a Chaos Domain spell. As an action, it says each player kills one of their gear. So this is this like equivalent exchange kind of ability, but the good news here is that you get to choose when you play this, and you just play this before you've ever played your gear, which means I'm going to give it a challenger rating. If you can catch your rival or your opponent while they play their gear, their turn 1 or turn 2 play, they play their gear, their seal, and you haven't done yours yet because you're on curve, well, you pay 1 energy, you tap one of your guys, you kill off their gear so that they've already had to recycle a rune back to their rune deck. Oh, and then that 1 committed energy you paid for the acceptable losses, hey, just recycle that and then hit your own gear on the board, your first seal, and you're good to go. You're off to the races, and you've really changed the tempo dynamic versus your opponent. So I think it's going to be a great card. Moving on, we've got Sky Splitter. This was given to us by John Mormon. He also works for the Riftbound team. And it is an 8 energy, 1 power spell for the Fury domain. You can play it as an action. And it says this spell's energy cost is reduced by the highest might among units you control. And it says deal 5 to a unit at a battlefield. So obviously it's got Volibear in the flavor text and on the art. This is meant to be played with Volibear, who wants to play mighty units. And I would say if you're going to equate this to a similar spell as we've already seen Void Seeker in the same presentation, that one costs 3 in a power. It deals 4, but it draws you a card. I think you kind of have to get this quite low to feel strong. But as soon as you start playing a 6, 7, 8 might unit, it just doesn't have a cap. This can cost you 0. It would just cost the power. I think it can be good. And it's just among units you control. So you don't have to have them at battlefields. You can play them for the turn. Like if you turned all your energy sideways and you played an 8 might unit, you now have a 1 power spell to deal 5 something at a battlefield. I think it's going to be quite good. It obviously requires some setup. So that's kind of my weariness with a lot of the cards that go in the ramp deck. Moving on, we have a new champion unit. We have the Body Domain Anivia, given to us by Brian Kibler, who is a Magic the Gathering content creator. 7 energy, 2 power, 8 might for a Freljord Bird Anivia champion unit. And it says, when I attack, deal 3 to all enemy units here. That's really good. That is very good because she's already an 8 might unit. So it essentially puts her in the realm. If there's only 1 unit at a battlefield, she can essentially trade with anything that's 11 might or less. And it scales obviously depending on how many units are at the battlefield because you deal more damage to them. I see some immediate synergy, obviously, with Bullet Time, which means you'd have to play her in a Misfortune deck, which isn't so bad because Misfortune has ganking and can give ganking to Anivia, which was very powerful for her ability. But Bullet Time allows you to deal even more damage to units to a specific battlefield. So if you set yourself up with Bullet Time, or even after you're attacking with your Anivia, you can do a tricky Bullet Time during the showdown to deal damage to all of the units at that battlefield. before Anivia even has the chance to take some damage back, and that's really good. Like, that is pretty good. I also really like her just like with synergistics of being able to move her right away. So I put up Set here because Set gets to play Showstopper, where you get to play Anivia essentially, use Showstopper on her, buffing her up to 9 might, and then you immediately move her to a battlefield, meaning that she deals 3 and she's got the extra might to protect herself. It feels pretty good. Obviously, there's a lot of power going on here, but Set being able to keep your Anivia alive if she dies is pretty strong as well. The last one, not least, obviously I'm a big favorite of the Misfortune deck, and even if you're not going to play Misfortune herself, Misfortune with this champion unit plus Anivia means that if you already have Misfortune on the board because she only costs 5, and you eventually go to play Anivia later, when you swing with the Misfortune, you can immediately untap your Anivia and have her ready to go, and that just feels very strong. There's so many different things you can obviously do with so many cards in this game. I'm going to go ahead and give Anivia a Challenger rating. I think she's going to be quite strong. Moving on, another battlefield was revealed to us today. This one is still by Brian Kibler, and this is Back Alley Bar. And this says when a unit moves from here, give it +1 might this turn. So obviously this is meant to be used with specifically a lot of ganking units. It's meant to be played if you can get your units back to your base and then immediately move them somewhere else. It's going to be a little harder and tricky to use, but I think ganking decks and mobility decks that can move really well are going to be very strong. So I do think this is going to be a good battlefield for them. And most other people aren't teching for this, or if their deck can't play with this mechanic, it is a battlefield that only you are really going to get the synergy like effect from, which is incredibly powerful because the less you give from your opponent or give to your opponent from the battlefields, the better. And then with this moment, that's basically our last reveal. So I took this moment since they finally gave us more battlefields to reveal. I'm going to go ahead and go through all the battlefields that are on the card gallery, which are essentially the ones that come in the decks. So of course, we have Altar to Unity, which says when you hold here, you get to play a 1 might recruit unit token into your base. This is obviously in the Victor deck. I think this is honestly not a bad battlefield. My problem and why I gave it a gold rating is if you play against somebody that's so much better at holding battlefields than you, they're going to take advantage of this more, and that randomly you're just giving your opponent more ways of making units, and I just don't think that's worth the trade unless you can always hold on to this battlefield. So, like, calm decks are going to like this, but if you're not a calm deck, you're going to have to really struggle or make sure you always have it. Moving on, we also have the Windswept Hillock, which says units here have ganking, and as I said earlier with things like the Misfortune deck, I went ahead and I gave this one Challenger. I think even though this is the same for your opponents, like they would have ganking there, the decks that are going to be making sure that ganking is available to any units that you want to have them available to it is really, really good. But it also means that if you're a Challenger deck, or sorry, if you're a body domain gank style deck like the Misfortune one, you don't have to play this battlefield in your battlefield deck, and somebody else might because it's so good that you get this double up advantage and you get to have picked a different battlefield for your synergies with your deck. And then the last one that I'm going to talk about today is the Zon Warrens, and this says when you conquer here, discard 1 and then draw 1. Obviously immediate synergies with the Jinx and why it's in the Jinx deck, but I like this one a lot, specifically because I think it's just the most generic one. I think anyone gets to take advantage of this, and it doesn't give too much advantage to your opponent if you end up not being the one taking over this battlefield very often. And I think that's good enough just for what battlefields represent in this game. And so I did give it a Challenger rating. I think this one is generic. If you are, like, I think the high level of this game is going to be quite competitive and quite skillful and hard. And so I think a battlefield like this is good for all versions of players. Casual players, competitive players, and everyone in between. This one is really good for everybody because it's either going to be very, very strong for the good players, but it's not the end of the world if you don't conquer this place, if you're a new player. And I think that's going to kind of help level out a lot of the battlefield disparity. But that's it for all the cards today. This was only June 16th, so of course we have more reveals that will be happening on the 18th on Wednesday. So we're going to have more news and more reveals to be talking about then. So if you like what you see, give it a like to the video, subscribe, and comment down below. I know I didn't talk about what I think Anivia's legend might end up being, so I might make a video tomorrow because we don't have any reveals talking about some of the other things involved in the game. But thanks so much, everybody, and have a great rest of your night.